Hello and welcome to my free video tutorial. The subject of this tutorial is related to my previous tutorial in that it looks at how to animate the color of a light. But this tutorial will show you how to do that using not Unreal Kismet, which is what I looked at in my previous video, but we'll show you how to animate a light using Unreal Script. The light that you see in front of you here changes from red to green and to blue. And this is the result of a new light type that I have created in Unreal Script. This tutorial will show you how to create this light in Unreal Script. So let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, I just want to say a little bit about what the aim here is. We're going to want to create a new light type, a light type that will animate its color over time. I'm going to create this new light type based upon the Spotlight Toggleable type. I'm basing it on that type because the Spotlight Toggleable is a dynamic light, meaning that its color can change over time, and changing color is exactly what we want to happen to our light. In order to create that light, I'm going to need to code a new class in Unreal Script, and to create a class in Unreal Script, I'm going to have to use some kind of code editor. Now, there are a number of ways in which you can create and compile Unreal Script code. One way is to create the code in a text editor such as Notepad and then to compile it manually using the UDK compiler. What I am using here, however, is the Microsoft Visual Studio 2010 editor, and I'm using that with the nFringe plugin. I am not going to explain the details on how to install either Visual Studio or nFringe, because I'm going to assume that you have those things installed already. There are a number of tutorials, both video tutorials and text-based tutorials, that explain to you how to get up and running. One thing I do want to mention about the setup I have here, though, is if we look in the Solution Explorer of Visual Studio here, you will see that I have a folder called Test Classes. Now, all of these folders listed in this pane correspond to folders that exist in the development source directory in the UDK installation folder. Let's take a quick look at that folder here. If I click on this and bring up this folder here, what you see in front of you is the UDK installation folder. You can see here that I have a range of folders inside the UDK installation. One of them is called Development. If I double click on the Development folder and I click on SRC to enter the source folder, you will see all the source code for the UDK. Now, most of this code ships with the UDK, it comes with the UDK, and these folders here correspond to folders in the Solution Explorer here. I have created a new folder called Test, and this folder will be used to contain the new class that I'm going to create for my light type, and you can see the test folder listed in the Solution Explorer here. In order to make sure that this folder, or that the source files in this folder will compile, I also must make sure that I have appropriately edited the UDK engine.ini file. That is, I have to make sure that I add the correct settings to the UDK engine.ini file. I can find that file by moving back up the tree here to the UDK folder, selecting UDK game, entering the config folder, and scrolling down until I find UDK engine.ini. If I double click that file and I scroll down into the file until I reach let's find it here, until I reach Unreal Editor Engine. Now at the bottom of this section, you will notice that I've added mod edit packages test. This line tells the Unreal compiler that it should look for source files in a folder called test, and this corresponds to the folder here. So you need to have this set up in order to compile your source code correctly. You may choose to name your folder something other than test, and if you want to do that, that is fine. I've just skimmed over these details of setting up Enfringe and Visual Studio and all the details necessary to compile Unreal Script. I've not gone into much detail because, again, I'm assuming that you know how to do this already. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get started and create a new class for our light. Now I'm going to create a new class to represent my new light type. In Unreal Script, one class corresponds to one source file, meaning that since I'm going to be creating only one class, I'm going to be creating only one source file. So I'm going to right-click here on the folder Classes, and I'm going to select Add and New Item from the context menu. I could also press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Shift-A. From the Add New Item menu, I'm going to select Unreal Script File, and I'm going to name this class My Animated Light and click the Add button. Make sure that you select Unreal Script File in the list here. You don't want to be creating any of these other kinds of files, and click the Add button when ready. Now this presents me with a new class definition. It's already filled in some values for me, and they are not quite what I want. You'll see that the class here is named My Animated Light, and that is correct, but you will notice that it says Extends Object, meaning that the class I'm going to create here currently extends or derives from the object class, and that is not what I want. I want my class to extend upon the functionality of the Spotlight toggleable. So that is the class that is going to be the parent or the ancestor class, the super class of the class that I'm going to create. So let's change this object to Spotlight toggleable, and in the code completion dialog here, I can see that Spotlight toggleable is an option here. So I'm going to select that. So we have class My Animated Light extends Spotlight toggleable. I want to add some extra properties here on a new line. Make sure that you carry the semicolon with you. On a new line, I'm going to insert the text placeable. This will ensure that my animated light class will be accessible from the actors pane of the UDK editor. We're going to see what that involves shortly. On another line, I'm going to add the text class group, and then in brackets I'm going to add test and lighting. Okay, whoops, it says light. No, that's not quite what I want. I want to delete this. Now, you may wonder what this achieves. This is wrong as well. Okay. Now, you may ask what this is going to achieve. And one of the best ways to describe this is to exactly show you the effects of these lines in the UDK editor. Here in the UDK editor, let's see the effects of the code we have created thus far by pressing Ctrl-Shift-F on the keyboard to display the content browser. In the Actors panel, let's click the Actors tab here, and we'll scroll down and we'll notice the option that says Test. And let's click the plus arrow here and see the lighting category. And by clicking plus again, we can see My Animated Light class. So by making the My Animated Light class placeable, we ensure that it is listed in this panel as an option that can be dragged and dropped into the level. Using the classes group statement, we have categorized My Animated Light under the nodes of Test and Lighting. Now, of course, our class is not yet completed. If I click and drag My Animated Light into the scene, you can see that I'm presented with a standard spotlight toggleable. This will behave exactly the same as a standard spotlight toggleable because I haven't added any further code to my class. I haven't added any further code to customize the behavior of the spotlight toggleable. So this class right now would act identical to the spotlight toggleable. So we're going to jump back into the Visual Studio Editor and code some more things to this light class.